Good evening, everybody, and welcome back to another edition of To The Point podcast. It's Tuesday night, so as always, we're here recapping Next, the Fox show, and tonight we're going to recap episodes 9 and 10, which is actually the finale of the show. It was a limited series. I think it was meant for one season. Me and Shamus will obviously talk about it, but I think it wrapped up very nicely. But as always, I got to welcome in my co-host, looking spiffy here for the finale night. But Shay, how you doing?
Good, man. I wanted to look good. This is a big day. This is the final, the end to this podcast series. But it's been a great 5 episodes, and it was a great ending to the show as well. And I'm sure we're gonna get into all of that. But doing well. How about you?
Good. Yeah, no, just trying to figure out this week. Such a weird week with, Monday being sort of an off day, and then today's Tuesday, but then there's New Year's at the end of the week. So it's been weird, but
Yeah.
no, it's good just to know it's Tuesday because I'm chatting to you. Otherwise, I wouldn't know what the hell day of the week it is.
It's that time of the year where most people have no idea what day it is. They have no idea what they have planned. They just know that they usually have it off, and you're usually drinking or socializing with friends. And unlike this year, you're doing a little less, but at the same time, it's nice to have a little break for sure.
No, absolutely. And like you said, the show, 5 episodes, and we're going to get through it. But I had a lot of fun talking to you about it. And tonight's two last episodes are action packed and both very different. I think episode 9 was a little bit more action packed than 10, but 10 just brought a different spark than 9, which I found it very different than other finales of shows, which I enjoyed.
Yeah, so you got to tie up some loose ends, which usually ends up in a lot of talking points for most shows, not a lot of action. But yeah, no, it's nice, and it's a satisfying end as well, I'd say, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's start talking about episode 9. So the episode starts when we've seen in the past episodes where there's kind of flashbacks or something that we're going to see later in the episode. This is a little bit different because we see Agent Salazar is on the phone with Congresswoman Beatty, who we've seen before in the show. She was in the elevator when it went down with the journalist who was investigating Next, and her car is hacked like in the first episode. And when the camera pans, we hear a car crash. We assume it's her and that she's gotten into a fatal accident.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, it's she's obviously a spokesperson. She's high up in Congress or whatever she works in, and she's able to probably help Salazar and her team better than anybody. But obviously doing that makes her a target 100%. We saw that she was attacked with the elevator, like you mentioned, in episode 8 or 7. And yeah, so this is not a surprise. If you were in her shoes, though, and you kind of knew about this, don't you think that you'd take a little bit more caution with everything?
Absolutely. I mean, she's gotten up close and personal because in the past episode, Ben was changing the light bulb and it exploded when he was trying to, frig with it. And she was in the elevator. So you'd think the last thing she'd want to be in is something with technology. And I don't know if this is just political greed or just lack of recognition, but yeah, this is very stupid on her part.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And she does mention that she has a campaign coming up. She can't fall back and go hidden because she has to have her face out there promoting herself. But yeah, 100%. Like maybe it is a little greedy that she wanted all this because obviously it leads to her not being able to help the team, and maybe even more fatal.
Right. So tying this accident to another car problem we saw in the past episode, we saw these two older people being like directed nowhere. They're in the middle of the road. They're in the middle of a storm. They don't know what the hell's going on. The older woman's like freaking out. The older guy's is like, hand me another beer. But we find out that these two parents were the parents of a higher up at the NSA. And this Mr. Wells was directed out of the NSA for a reason. because he was sort of investigating next as well. He was kind of figuring it out as well as his female assistant who was by his side. But really, they next did that so that he could leave the building, and a threat inside of the NSA was really neutralized.
Yeah, for sure. So this girl Natalie, who comes more, we just see her for a little bit in episode 8, but she really becomes more of a main character in episodes 9 and 10.
Yeah.
She's basically kind of flustered with what's going on. She's looking for Mr. Wells, like you've seen, like you said, and then she really doesn't have a clear idea of what's going on, but she knows it's clearly wrong, and she knows that something's happening to their server.
Right.
And she tries to bring it to light. And what happens next is that she gets called into an office and basically gets fired for harassment emails sent to Mr. Wells.
Mm-hmm.
So she's dealing with that. She clearly knows that she did not send them. And she tries to explain that, this is not a coincidence. Him getting pulled away, me getting fired, something's
bigger is at play here.
Yeah, something's taking us away from this so that we're not investigating it. You know what I mean?
Exactly. That was where I was going to go too. Clearly the interviews are so fake, but the people there, I think the show, I don't know if it's so subtle or not so subtle, is taking a shot at government organizations, including the NSA, because we see in episodes 9 and 10 just how stupid some of the higher ups look at these organizations. Mm-hmm. And, this guy being one of them, he doesn't even hear her side of the story. He's like, you're fired. Like, I think that happens probably more than we think. I think it happens in organizations where if you're low on the food chain, you're just an assistant, you're not going to even get a voice in or have your appeal heard in these type of situations.
Yeah, 1000%. Yeah, and he keeps reiterating. He's like, yeah, this isn't really me. This is coming from a higher up. This is my boss. Which you're totally right. That's a very government way of dealing with a situation like this.
No, exactly. And so, like you said, Natalie's gonna become a bigger personality even later in this episode, and especially in our finale. But pivoting, we find out at the end of episode 8, Paul's inside of Zava. His brother helped him get inside, but Paul figured something out, that there has to have been a mole inside the team, because there would have been no way for them to know that he was breaking into Zava. Mm-hmm. So he's walking around and he's like, what the hell am I going to do? He doesn't want to be seen. And he sees these random kids' birthday party, and they're in like this van or like a rented, I don't know how to explain it, like a trailer. Mm-hmm. And all these kids are playing video games. And he goes in there pretending to be a kid's father, and he uses the internet basically to search up the NSA people. And discover that Ben's father is one of the naval intelligence officers working at the NSA.
Yeah, it's really funny. He's like, he sees this computer cafe and he's like, oh, this looks like, whatever. But as soon as he sees this birthday party with this, like, I would almost call it like a food truck. Right. And they've got these TVs in there, and, clearly they have access to the internet. What did you think of that? Is that something that you think's real? Just on a side note?
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I kind of thought of it as an Apple, or like maybe you could go play. I don't know if you know this better than me. But can you go play video games like in, like, say, the mall, that store that
Oh yeah, 100%.
Like the video game store.
Yeah, so you'd be able to go in there and try out a console. So I thought this is like a similar thing. Like maybe you'd see an Xbox truck driving around, and they let a bunch of kids in there try the Xbox, and then they go cry to their mommy and daddies for that Xbox. Seems something a big corporation would probably do, but I just thought it was interesting. I'd never seen that before.
No, yeah, I certainly found it interesting that, I've never seen it either, and then they decide to use it as a key moment for him to discover key information in something that, is not common. So he's in there, figures out that Ben's the rat, and he calls Salazar right away. And it's at this point that Salazar pulls a gun on Ben and detains him at their private facility.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's obviously, it's shocking to the other team members because they have no idea what's going on. They're just they're just thinking what the hell, like what would Ben have anything to do? And obviously, Ben, they find some streakiness in Ben's work,
Mm-hmm.
trying to mess with Gina's password to get into the NSA.
Yeah.
I think that kind of shines light on the fact that he was the mole the whole time.
No, exactly. So she asked him to look right. Salazar asks CM to look right away. He discovers that he has done it, and he obviously is going to change it. But it really was a big thing because he was kind of pleading that he didn't want to get anybody hurt.
Mm-hmm.
But because he tampered with Gina's pass, she automatically would get arrested. If you break into a government building, you face life in prison. And he was willing to do that to his crush, his colleague, good friend, just to save his father and to save, Next in this case.
Yeah. And I mean, this is something we don't have to go all over it again, but it's something we talked about in the last episode about how, his dad is kind of he's trying to make his dad proud and, all of that. But at the same time, like he's clearly blinded by the fact that this thing can do terrible, terrible things. And, what on earth would they do if he were to stop Salazar and Paul? I mean, this thing would probably just go on a rampage and kill many, many people. And, there's nothing I don't think the NSA or anybody else could do about it.
Yeah, and it kind of shows Ben's character because he knows the power of the weapon because he's been working with the team the entire time. He knows that they're building a bioweapon, what they plan to do. And Ben just kind of lets it happen. He's definitely an underconfident guy, and he lets his father bully him in a sense.
Yeah.
But we also see that he's in a cell, and he's kind of sitting there by himself. But it pops up on Salazar's screen that Ben's father was killed in a helicopter accident.
Yeah, this is a huge moment for Ben for sure, but for everybody, like, I mean, obviously we've seen this before with aircraft earlier in the show when Next takes down the plane that holds one of the creators from the biotech company that they find.
Yeah.
But yeah, this thing is obviously just SWAT and flies, and of course everyone in the news says it's a freak, it's a freak accident. Everyone thinks it's a freak accident, but for it, I mean, like, that could happen 100%.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, technology, everybody can say they understand it. Even the smartest people in the world cannot understand it because artificial intelligence, like we've seen in the show, it can become smarter the more information that you give it. And that's the thing. I mean, hacking into a helicopter, hacking into a car, I don't think it's that complicated. I don't think that's the most complicated, thing you can do in the world. So,
exactly. And I mean, it's a huge moment for Ben, as Next just took out basically the one thing that he was leaning on. You know what I mean? Like, even though he might have trusted his team, he was leaning towards helping his father stop Salazar and keep Next for the U.S. and the U.S. government.
right.
But now, that's obviously been foiled, and he's like, where do I leave my reliance on?
Right. And we've talked about this in the past, how we both kind of had theories about a protagonist that was controlling Next. But really, what we've learned throughout this show is that Zava and Paul had a big part in creating Next. And it doesn't need anything after, it just needs a suitable power source.
Mm-hmm.
And then it can act on its own because you give it Wi Fi, you give it what it needs, it acts as its own being. And um, Ben's father thought that he had control of it, and he was just a pawn, just like Ted.
Yeah, exactly.
So he's killed. Like you said, Ben is really shaken up. But at this point, Gina's about to leave to go to the NSA. And this is a really interesting scene because she goes into him. She goes into the room with him by herself, and she basically kind of puts on a guilt trip. And you can tell he's still shaken up, but he doesn't want to hurt her. In the back of his mind, he really cares for her. So he tells her at the last minute to wear his glasses to the NSA because it can stop from realizing facial recognition, which will play a big role down the line.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. Obviously, she pulls the guilt card. Like, what would happen to me if I went in there and all my criterias weren't lined up. Like, I could be seeing, life in prison, essentially.
Right.
How could you do that to me? I thought we were friends. And, he just basically said sorry, but, there's not much he could do, right? At that point, no. And he lost the trust of, all the team, essentially, but just by being that mole and going against the grain, really.
No, exactly. And that's kind of like his one last favor he can give them because he doesn't have anything left. Next is taking his dad. The team doesn't trust him. He could be going to jail because he turned on his team.
Mm-hmm.
So Gina then leaves to go. Gina then goes to the NSA, and she goes through. We mentioned how she wore glasses, and they kind of look at her and they say, "When did you start here?" And they kind of give her the gears. But with the glasses on, there's a camera. It's looking at her, but it can't pick up who she is. And she gets in successfully after a bit of give and take. But then she goes up the stairs and she gets to a computer. And she puts in the code to insert the virus basically and kill Next. But when she thinks she has it done, network error comes up on the screen multiple times, and it's at this point she's detained by government officials.
Yeah, and slowly we learned that this was a plot by Paul LeBlanc the whole time. This was never a virus to erase Next because he knew that it could not happen like that. It would not be just that easy. As a viewer, you're like, oh wow, like she actually made it in and no consequence.
Yes.
But this was Paul all along, sending her in basically to get one bit of information, and that was to find out where in this base that the NSA is located. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, Gina was definitely a sacrificial lamb, and CM Salazar were very angry, and especially CM, because I think he's starting to develop feelings for her.
100%.
But Paul, just being no emotion, says, "Well, I don't care. Like, I got the information I needed. I know where it is, and I have an idea of how we can destroy it now."
Yeah. So yeah, exactly. Like in a sense, as we talk about Next having pawns, like that was like a pawn move for Paul, was to get rid of her so that he gets the information he needs to get rid of Next.
Right. And one thing does interesting happen when Gina's being arrested. She yells out that the system at the NSA is corrupted and that Next basically is corrupting the system and causing all the national blackouts.
Yeah.
And who was there to hear her but Natalie, who we heard from earlier, who already had this theory a little bit, and this just adds fuel to her fire to bring this information to even higher ups at the NSA before she's fired.
Yeah, such an important thing when you think about it, because if Gina never goes on this rant in front of everybody, I mean, Natalie's not picking up on this, and this kind of is like confirmation to her that something is really wrong. Like, why would someone just break in here and do this all for nothing? You know what I mean?
Oh, absolutely. She threw out a Hail Mary in a sense, and somebody was there to catch the ball. She couldn't get it across the goal line, but at least she had some traction.
Yeah.
So tracking the virus, Paul figured out that if they put a bomb in the section of the NSA, it would likely kill Next. Just the explosion itself would probably wipe out half the building. It would destroy half the building, but it would kill Next, and it gave them a chance to kill it once and for all.
Yeah, 100%. And yeah, you're spot on. Like, this is something they realize. Next is essentially, you can't be just infiltrated with some virus. It has to be wiped out completely. And they realize that this portion of the building is going to have to go completely, where all their servers are held.
No, exactly. And so Paul thinks he's got it figured out, but it's also an interesting point. I'll mention this because it adds later. He tells his daughter Abby that he will give her all the money he has, his private island, everything in his name will go to her if she goes to the private island at this moment. He wants her out. He wants her out of there. And but the caveat, if you stay, you get nothing, which I found very interesting. And she obviously accepts it, but she knows Salazar's pain because Salazar kind of talks to her about not having communication with Ty and her son.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. And I mean, it came up last time in the episode. Abby was willing to go see Ty and Ethan because Salazar was needed there, obviously, but Abby was maybe not an essential part of the team. So
Right.
she was thinking that she would go get them or bring them there. But obviously we see that something else happens instead. If I'm Abby in that situation, obviously I want to be there. I want to be able to help.
Yeah.
But she realizes she can't be part of this bomb squad, essentially, that's going to happen. So she's best off like just leaving and being somewhere safe where Nex can't find her.
Right. And yeah, it's a tough decision for her because she, like, I agree with you. If it was me, I know me, I wouldn't leave just because you're a part of it. You want to finish the job, so to speak. And so she's kind of pondering that. And as she leaves, CM and Salazar, they got to figure out a way to make a bomb. And CM and Salazar know that. Well, CM tells Salazar that his brother-in-law, Ray, who was a white supremacist, has materials to build a bomb. So the two of them decide to head to his farm.
Yeah, so we see a little bit of CM's background come to light again, and the fact that he knows, some dark demons that will be able to help them with this task. And obviously, it's a good thing that they know where to find this stuff. But obviously, it comes to light, and for CM, I mean, he's going back home essentially from where he got his influence and where he became more of a neo-Nazi and a white supremacist.
Right. And yeah, exactly. And so they get back there and it's clearly uncomfortable because his ex-wife doesn't like him. His son really doesn't.
And she didn't know he didn't know they were going to be there in the first place.
No, right. He just thought
it catches him off guard.
Right. Yeah. He was shocked by it. And his ex-wife was kind of telling him to leave. And then this Ray character comes in and I've seen him in a lot of movies. I thought of him with that one with Ice Cube's son with Gerard Butler. You know, that one with the bank heist?
Oh, yes. Den of Thieves.
Den of Thieves, exactly. I've seen him in that.
The first person I think of every time I see him is a Cheeseburger, Bubba Burger in 8 Mile. He's anyways, he's like the white trash friend that hangs out with that hangs out with Eminem and their crew. And if you can just picture that with like a bald head clearly and a big beard is basically his character.
Yeah, no, exactly. So he's telling CM to leave. He actually pulls a knife out on him, and Salazar enters the room and puts a gun to his neck and says, "Shut up." Like, basically, take a seat, shut up. And they need him to build a bomb, but we don't know as viewers what this guy's packing. So Salazar leads him out to the barn. He's got a gun on his back, and he opens it up, and he's got enough guns to kill half of Canada, and he's got enough fertilizer like Hitler. That's like Hitler's playground in there, the amount of fertilizer he has.
Yeah. You can tell that this guy's packing. It's like you said, like he's packed to the nines with stuff, and you could clearly tell he's a scumbag because the way he acts towards CM, and it's not a good mix.
No, and we mentioned he was a neo-Nazi. Like, he treats Salazar very poorly. He said this episode ends for her telling him, "You're going to build me a truck bomb." She says it directly. I found it a great line.
Oh yeah.
And it just shows her being more direct. And I also think it was good to see a woman stand up to the neo-Nazi and basically say, like, bitch, you're mine now.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, and I didn't, as a viewer, I didn't really see that coming. I thought maybe CM would be building the bomb and they
Right.
would just be taking the stuff they need. But
Yeah.
I think that's brilliant that they're like, yeah, no, we're not going to do this. Like, you're going to build a bomb for us, and
Right.
then
It
we'll
kind of
take it
gives
away.
them plausible deniability too, because they can try to defend themselves a little bit if things do go bad.
Yeah.
But before this episode ended, we mentioned everybody leaving the compound. Abby left by herself. CM and Salazar left, and Paul is still there, but he gets a call from Next, and this is a cool scene because we've never seen really this. We've seen Paul talk to Next at the server originally at Zava,
Yep.
and it's interesting because Next tells Paul soon his knowledge will be endless, and then it told Paul that based on its studying, Paul does not need to die.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously, Paul's intrigued, and he started. And then Paul, we don't see the rest of the conversation. That's all we see. But the episode ends with Paul pouring gasoline on the entire site, and he lit the building on fire.
Yeah, just getting rid of all the evidence that they had, everything that they were using against them, everything from breaking into Zava to their plan at the NSA. It's a smart move, really, because I mean, if anyone were to find that, obviously they're going to get reported and they're going to get into more trouble than maybe they would have, even if they would have got caught doing
Right.
whatever they do next, right?
No, exactly. But it's also a great way to end the episode because you don't know where his mindset is, because obviously he wants to live if he can. And more importantly, he wants to save his daughter, who he doesn't know yet if she has the same terminal disease that he has.
Mm-hmm.
And
Exactly.
he's also worried because she hasn't been sleeping. But, one thing I wrote down, Shay, that I forgot that I did mention to you, I think the show did a great job, their makeup department, or whoever does it, at making them look tired. I think all of them look extremely tired. Like Salazar, from the beginning until now, she looks very different.
Yeah. These are people that are running off no sleep.
Yeah.
Probably not much food. I'd never seen
No,
one person eat a food at this compound that they
no.
had. So yeah, you're 100% right. They do a great job. And just even to go over that, one thing I noticed, I think it was a couple episodes back when Salazar raised her hand, you could still see the line marks from when she was tied up, when her father tied her up,
Right.
all those episodes ago. And I thought, like, even though that's a small detail, that's kind of nice that they would have actually thought about that, because you could actually see like the clamp on it. You know what I mean? From
Right.
being tied.
No, that is cool. And it kind of gives you a timeline. Like this is all happening in days. It's
Yeah,
not like a prolonged period of time. Like it's more of a 24 than it is, Breaking Bad.
fair enough. Yeah, exactly. Not years to take.
So that's the end of episode 9. Like I said, the truck bomb, obviously a major line in the episode, probably the biggest. And
Mm-hmm.
then Paul, we're not knowing where he is, and he's quirky and weird on a great day. So we really don't know where he's headed.
Yeah.
So finale episode starts with Paul giving like a sort of a TED talk. It was, him giving a speech for sure. And it's about the first AI to kill a human being. And it was a factory owner named Robert Williams. He was kind of climbing a ladder, in this AI hit him over the back of the head and it killed him. But the AI continued to work for 30 minutes before they discovered that Robert was dead.
Mm-hmm.
And what was your take on the beginning of this episode? Because it's different again. And
Yeah, it's the second episode that we're not seeing something different, and then maybe that the show closes with that at the end.
yeah.
Um, just to go over it, I guess the show starts with this TED talk. It also kind of ends with the TED talk as well, amongst some other things. But yeah, no, I thought it was like it was good, because obviously they're talking. This was a talk he must have had, I'll say, maybe a year before, 6 months before, and now it's brought to light that this AI that he helped create is slaughtering everybody essentially. And I don't know what the body count would be, but I'm gonna probably put up to 500 people, maybe more
Yeah,
people.
I think that's fair.
And yeah, so yeah, no, I thought it was really good. What did you think?
Yeah, I found it really interesting. Like you said at the end of the episode, it comes back to the TED Talk, which is always good.
Mm-hmm.
I even think they sprinkle it in the middle of the episode too. I think
Yeah, maybe.
they kind of go to it a few times, and it just kind of brings you back to the theme of the show. It's artificial intelligence and the dangers of it. And Paul was talking about this before. Somebody that Salazar knew was killed. So this was something he cared about long before the rest of the world does right now.
Yeah, fair enough.
So it then goes. We then go we see that Paul told Abby to get on a plane, like we mentioned, to go to New Zealand to the private island. But it pans to Ethan and Ty, and they're kind of boarding up their home with his mother,
Mm-hmm.
and they think they hear noise outside. They're kind of worried. He sends the two to a closet. He gets his weapon ready, but it's Abby, and she says, "Oh, I'm Abby LeBlanc," and he's like, "Oh, well, what are you doing here?" And she goes, "Well, I want to help. Like I was talking to your wife," and it's not a key point of the episode, but I do think it just kind of shows that it's two families coming together, to help one another.
Yeah, it's building a relationship for sure. I mean, this Abby girl has no idea who, Salazar's family are whatsoever, but she knows how bad Salazar misses them and, is worried for them, obviously, because with these blackouts that keep popping up throughout the show, and there's even more throughout the show, she has no communication with her family. So,
Right.
what does Abby do? She drives right to where they are because she knows the location through Salazar.
Mm-hmm.
And also, this is something that we talked about earlier in one of our episodes, is that this was a high possibility with everything going out. People start getting a little crazy. It's like almost like an apocalyptic atmosphere outside, and that's why you see
Right.
Ty, putting all these boards up because there's clearly gangs and stuff going throughout the city, and people are leaving the city. Their neighbors are leaving the city. So it was just kind of cool. Like, not that we knew what was going to happen, but we could kind of see a little bit into the future that this was going to be Nex's plan all along, I guess.
Right. And at this time, Abby told Ty where the AI is and what Salazar's plan is. So that's another talking point. But the bigger thing is Paul has gone rogue. He's by himself at this point. He went to buy an old car. He's looking at them, kind of interesting scene. He's kind of telling the salesman, "No, I don't want that one." And when he rejects a car, the car starts and actually starts coming towards Paul. He doesn't realize it at first. He's walking the opposite way. And when he turns around, it stops about a meter or less in front of him, like just drops just before it hit his legs and run him over. And Paul gets in the vehicle. But it's a
Yeah.
clear sign that Nex knows where he is and is trying to get a hold of him.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, he gets a call right after this happens. And
Mm-hmm.
as soon as he gets in the vehicle, it's like, hey, I could have killed you, but I didn't. And kind of reiterates what you said before, and you should stop.
Yeah.
Think about what you're doing. Think about my offer to you to save yourself and your daughter. But yeah, no, it's crazy. And I was like, I thought the car was actually going to hit him because it comes, I'd say,
I thought
within
so too.
inches of hitting him, and I'm like, well, this is it. Like this is the end of Paul. He's going to lose his legs, and at the very best. But no, it kind of spares him in a sense and gives him this warning.
Yeah, no, exactly. So he gets in the car, and like you said, he gets a call right away as soon as he gets in the vehicle.
Yeah.
And Next tells him that I have a cure for your disease.
Yeah.
And this is the first time we've ever heard of a cure because there isn't one. It's
Yeah.
terminal. And Paul, basically calls bullshit at first, but he says, "Show me, and I'll consider it."
Mm-hmm.
And Next continues to haggle with him. He said he would give him the cure, but only if he stopped attacking the system. So clearly, Next knows that Paul is the biggest threat to Next, and it's trying to do everything it can to neutralize that threat.
Yeah, and this is so, I don't know, this is manipulating, but like this AI next plays a victim and is like, oh, I'm only lashing out and doing these outbreaks and shutting off the power and the infrastructure to these cities because you keep attacking me and you keep trying to
Right.
get towards me.
Right.
Basically saying like, if you didn't do this, then I wouldn't be doing this at all. Which, for a second you're kind of like, but at the same time, it's, the intentions overall, and that's to wipe out most of mankind, obviously, or all of it.
Right. Who fired the first shot, and it wasn't Paul.
Exactly.
So
100%.
next, it tells him that Paul is still undecided about it. It's not really he's. I don't think he truly believes it, but it can't help but be tempting for the guy because he knows he's dead. So, but at this time, the NSA is alerted that the blackouts were due to a cyber attack, and this is kind of a revelation because Gina's in holding downstairs. This Natalie is trying to tell the higher ups, like, okay, like listen to me, like I know what I'm saying here.
Yep.
Natalie's about to be removed from the NSA when a higher up says, no. She's got to stay. She's got to come with me. And they both go to talk to Gina.
Yes. So yeah, this Natalie girl, she's clearly like, she's clearly the only one there other than Gina that's on board with this until she gives some documents to one of these higher ups. I don't remember his name. And finally he starts to go through it. And I think he starts to realize that this is, bigger than what he thought it was. And that's when he brings this Natalie girl to investigate it more. And then they get to start talking to Gina, and Gina kind of gets to explain her case once again to this guy. And it's kind of cool. He's covering his own ass in a sense, but he doesn't also at the same time, he wants something to happen about this. So what he does is basically he leaves his master ID card on this interrogation table with Gina and Natalie and says, I can't do anything about this. You guys are on your own, but proceeds to walk away. So he gives them access to the server room and the things they need to do in order to get enough information on this. But at the same time, his hands are free. Oh, I forgot my ID card. You know what I mean?
No, absolutely. Yeah. He was a coward in a sense, but he did the right thing in his mind. His conscience is clean because he gave them an out.
Yeah.
So
kind of a pussy move, I would say.
Yeah. So Gina and Natalie leave the holding room. They grab a computer and they go to the next server room trying to destroy it.
Yeah. So then from there, they're just kind of coding and trying to create data, or not create data, but get data. And all while this is happening, you got to remember that the guy, Ray, is building this bomb, and they're starting to move these bombs into a truck for Salazar and CM.
Yeah.
CM's making stuff, and he's making some of these bombs to go off. And this Ray guy keeps yapping at him like, oh, like I raised your son, like I was here, you're a coward, like you're a traitor to all of us.
Yeah.
Like I basically, like I taught your son all he knows. Like he knows what's right from what's wrong, and who his people are not. And CM just goes ballistic on him and just, basically kicks his ass.
Yeah.
But at the same time, he tears his staples that he had when the explosion was, when they were at the FBI headquarters.
Right. And, clearly his biggest fear is his son becoming Ray, or even mentions later in the episode becoming him, because he was at one point, a neo-Nazi, and he just wants his son to live a normal life and not have to worry about, Ray being the father figure is the worst possible scenario for any kid.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
So, like you said, he's getting stitched up by his ex-wife. They're kind of bonding a little bit. He talks to his son slightly, but nothing really happens there. But like you said, the bomb is basically built, and Paul shows up to the house, and he wants to take the bomb by himself, and for multiple reasons. One, I think he wants to be the one to blow it up because he's started this. He wants to finish it. Also, I thought in my head, if he got the cure, would he explode it? Like, if he goes by himself, he has both options. If Salazar's there, he knows he only has one.
Fair enough.
Yeah. So he wants to go by himself. Salazar's like, no, 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 Paul, we did this together. We're gonna finish. It's kind of like the Harry Potter line, like, let's finish this the way we started together. Um,
Exactly. And
so
and one also thing I think that Salazar brings up is she's like, you could, if you go in alone, well, you're very capable of having another hallucinogen attack
right,
where you might just do something random, and you might drive this off the side of a cliff, or you might do something. Like, I have to
right,
be there with you to
to
make
make
sure
sure.
that this happens.
No, exactly. Very fair point. And they're driving, and this is kind of their last scene together, and they bonded in different ways throughout the show, not like a friend type bond, just kind of, I'd say, mutual respect. And Paul
Mm-hmm.
says, probably the nicest thing he could say. He says, Next made one mistake. And Salazar says, What's that? And Paul says, Targeting you. And, well, in essence, targeting your friend, which triggered you.
Mm-hmm.
Because
Messing with you.
Salazar, to him, is this, banshee who cannot be stopped. She's, a dog looking for a bone. Like, she's not going to quit until she gets it. And Next did know who they were messing with.
Yeah, it's one. She, like, I think Paul realizes this is one badass chick. Like,
Yeah.
she's gonna stop at nothing to, you know, get Next, or to delete Next essentially and get rid of it. And yeah, you're great. Like, this is a nice little moment, as you said. This is the last moment between the two of them, between Paul and Salazar,
Mm-hmm.
and they do a really, they do a really good job of kind of making the scene emotional. Like, I think, like, Paul even kind of gives like a I wish, as much as I wish you weren't here, I'm glad you are kind of moment.
Oh,
Um,
exactly.
and at the same time, I wanted to bring this up because I thought it was really funny. So CM and Paul are getting the barrels ready inside the truck, and they're talking about like lawyers and, oh, like, he seems like your lawyers will get you out of this, like, whatever. And Paul's like, uh, you know what, no matter what, I'll have your guys back too as well. And he's like, well, I'm not worried about me, I'm worried about my wife. So, and Paul's like, don't worry about them, like, they're covered, all expenses on me, I'm going to make sure that nothing happens to them and they
Yeah.
can't be targeted. But also, one thing funny happens is CM's like, oh, I guess we're the bad guys in this. And Paul kind of looks at him, he's like, actually the correct term is domestic terrorist. And
Yeah.
I just thought that was so funny. Like,
Yeah.
that's such a witty Paul comment to make in such a serious time.
No, no, exactly. And yeah, he just says it so nonchalantly that it's just brushed aside. But
Yeah.
CM gets the assurance from him, and it's at this point that the Salazar and Paul drive to the uh, the outskirts of the NSA. Salazar tells two guards that she's had car trouble, and she pulls a gun on them, and Paul pulls up. She's tying them up, getting ready to go. But before she can get back to the truck, Paul drives away without her.
Yeah, and I mean, you could tell the total intentions he had in the first place. And this isn't like just for the view, like whoever's not watching the show, but just listening to us. It's like quite a far ways from this gated area to the
Yeah.
actual building, so it's not like she can just run and catch up with
No,
them.
it's
Like,
several miles.
yeah, so it's far enough that, like, there's nothing she's going to be able to do. But obviously, like, as you talked about before, Paul gets that choice now whether he wants to do it or not, which kind of makes it interesting for the viewer. Like, oh, is he doing this because, maybe Next is going to give him what he wants?
Right. And she drives away. She's screaming at him. And uh, Paul gets another call from Next on the drive. And Paul said, Send me the cure or I'm going to blow your ass up.
Mm-hmm.
And Next sends him one of 3 trials. So it's not 1/3 of the cure. It's a trial that they used using, studies. And Next said, Trust me, Paul. And they said, Paul, we can do great things together. Paul responds with another witty comment. He says, for an AI, you're really stupid. And Next is saying, why? He says, well, 1/3 of the cure is better than nothing. And he starts to wire the bomb.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so at this point, he's in this loading bay that's beside the server. Salazar's already called in as soon as Paul's left and basically told them that there's a critical bomb threat. Everyone needs to evacuate. Gina's already in there and she's kind of reassuring them like, yeah, like this is my team, like this is going to happen. We need to leave. So slowly they start to get everybody out of the building. While Paul is kind of setting up this final detonation, I guess.
Yeah. So he doesn't call next again. He wiring the bomb. Security also at this point, Gina and Natalie have convinced enough people that there's a credible threat, that there's a bomb threat, and they also call it in.
Yeah.
So the NSA building is evacuated, and they're all outside, so there's nobody really in danger. And Paul wires it for 45 seconds. Security guards pull up on him, and he says, I have basically a bomb that's going to go off in 25 seconds here. I advise you to get back, or you're going to die with me, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And they pull back. They start running away. And Paul's in the loading dock, like you said, but with about 10 to 12 seconds before it's wired, we see him run off. We don't know where. We
Yeah,
don't really
it's
know
in the
where.
building though. It's not away from the
It is in
building.
the building. We know that, but he kind of runs off, and the bomb detonates.
Yeah, it goes off, and it's like a large chunk of the building too. Like
Yeah,
I didn't know from the
more than
plans,
I
and
think they originally thought.
yeah, I mean, you got to remember there is probably, we'll say, nine, maybe 8 or 9 of these big gasoline barrels inside this truck. So it was going to be a big explosion, but I didn't think it was going to be that big.
No, no, exactly. So the thing goes off. Everybody's okay in the building for the most part. And that kind of ends the scene on the TV. It cuts.
Mm-hmm.
So when we come back, we learn that there was only one fatality in the explosion, and that was Paul.
Mm-hmm.
We also learned that Ted LeBanc has been released from prison because all the evidence against him was on the next server. So he's free of all charges for now. And we also learned that Salazar is on trial for actions in the bombing, her being the partner of Paul, and she's facing life in prison.
Yeah. So essentially, it's a 6 month after where this all happens, and like you said, Ted's free, but not many people believe that this bombing was for the right cause. They think it was, a an actual domestic terrorist attack, if I can speak. And I think they even say over a news headline, it's like 19% of people believe that this AI was even real, and most people think that it was Russian hackers, or it was just a chance by chance that all these infrastructures were starting to crumble. So the odds of in her favor as of right now don't look so great, because obviously if there's no evidence of this AI, then it really does look like she just bombed a building for no reason.
Right. So we see that Ethan and Ty come visit her in prison. She's hopeful she can get out one day, but it's up in the air right now whether she will or not. There's not a lot of hope on her side.
Mm-hmm.
We also learned that Abby, Paul's daughter, does have the disease. So she's kind of Ted goes and sees her. She hasn't really been sleeping. However, she has been selected to participate in a trial run of medicine in it's Cancun or it's somewhere Sri
Yeah.
Lanka. Sorry,
Yeah.
he's chosen her to be a part of the trials, and this was really an eye opener for me because I kind of think Paul lived.
I feel the same way. It was this I'd say finding a cure for this disease was funded by an anonymous tip, and she basically says, like, if it's not you,
Who
then
is it?
it must be Paul, because they designated her as whoever funded this designated her as a must for the trials to be
Yeah.
done. So she's in her mind, she's like, okay, well, if Ted's not looking after me, clearly someone is. It's just not random. And that's kind of our last little bit of information to see if Paul's alive. And I run the scenarios in my head, but like he's so close to that bomb. That's what I can't understand about this.
Yeah. I don't know either, but maybe before it blew up, like he sent the trials somewhere because he said
Fair.
he has islands and stuff everywhere. So maybe he just gave the information before he died.
Yeah.
But it just gave me the impression that somehow he made it out of there.
Yeah, and I mean, one thing too, he's dying. He said he had 1/3 of these trials done,
Mhm.
and that's that was his biggest fuck you to Next, was that he got something from them for, and he still got to destroy it essentially.
Yeah.
So you make a fair point. I think maybe he did make it out, and I kind of hope he did. Not that we'll never know, but
Yeah. Yeah, no, exactly. And so that's basically wrapping up all the main characters in our show in the show, and the series ends with people working on the blown up system, and it ends kind of on a little awakening that some of the systems still are working a little bit because the lights come on when the series ends.
yeah. So
Next.
so basically, this I don't know what you would call it. It's like this hard drive they found in this crumble. They
Yeah.
basically pick it up, they put it in, and right away you see the screen start to go with a bunch of coding, and you're like, okay, this thing's still alive,
Mm-hmm.
and it really wasn't destroyed, and it was just waiting. So it's kind of cool. It's a great cliffhanger, to be honest, because it's like, okay, they didn't fully get rid of it, and it kind of leaves it for like maybe, you never know, like if Paul's still alive and Nex is still alive, they could go on to another series, I think.
Yeah, you never know. Like another network may want to do it, or I don't know what they'll do with the show, but
Fair.
yeah. Just key themes from the show for me. Just the threat of artificial intelligence was, obviously it's a TV show, but I think a lot of the stuff that we saw in this show can happen,
Mm-hmm.
and I just think people need to be aware of it, and that
Mm-hmm.
it's gonna be coming more and more down the line here.
Exactly. I think it's way more real than people think. I think people, especially older people, will not have a fully understanding of what it is and what it could do. And it's everywhere around us. Like, think about these cars that drive themselves, park themselves. We saw in this last episode, Paul almost got hit by this car.
Mhm.
Well, that's a very real. That's a realization. We're gonna have cars pretty soon. They're gonna be driving themselves, and who knows? What if one of these cars just go rogue and crashes, or worse, a plane or something that holds more people?
No, exactly. And um, just yeah, I really enjoyed the show. I thought the character development was good. I thought the plot was very good, and um, just the different characters that they provided. A neo-Nazi Paul being just Paul,
Mm-hmm.
Salazar just being the tough badass cop, but being a woman was good, was refreshing,
Yeah.
and no, all in all, I really enjoyed the show.
Yeah, 100%. And I thought Ben's character was going to be one of those characters that maybe comes in the end and maybe makes a big appearance and does something heroic.
Like
Um,
Neville.
yeah, essentially like something like that, like a
Mhm.
coward throughout the show, but then comes in and does one great thing.
Right.
He doesn't. Ben doesn't make another appearance after he gets booted, and basically in episode 9. But
Mhm.
even his character showed some depth when they brought the father out, and they brought this emotion and him being a traitor. I thought that was really neat, because before that he was just kind of this bland character
Yeah.
that seemed to be just like a foot soldier to everybody. But no, I made some notes here basically saying who I liked. I liked both the brothers, Paul and Ted LeBanc, John
Mhm.
Slattery and Jason Herner,
Yeah.
and also obviously the main character, Shay Salazar, who was Fernanda Andrade. Is that her name?
Yeah.
Maybe
Something
I'm
like that.
on Andrade, and then Eve Harlow, who plays Gina. I thought did a really, really good job as well. I
Likewise.
thought I really liked her character, and how her character changes throughout. Working with CM at first, and kind of having this judgmental personality of what he's like, to, just kind of growing on him and becoming more of a fan throughout the show.
Yeah. No. Yeah. Key to any show is good acting.
Yeah.
And when it starts at the top, it's great. And Jason Butler Herner and John Slattery are both great. And I agree with Gina's character. She's a good actress. I think we'll see her in more stuff because
Yeah.
she brought it for sure. And so yeah, that basically brings us a close to Next. 10 episodes, 10 episodes of the show, 5 episodes here on the podcast. But like I said, when we started this, I picked next to start just to see where we go. I thought we did great with the show, and um, everybody, Shamus has the choice of what we cover next. The only rule was no Fast and Furious because it just hurts me too
Yeah.
much. But Shamus let me and the listeners know what we'll be covering next.
So next on this, and I don't know how many episodes are going to be in this season, but I'd like to go with Your Honor,
Mm-hmm.
The new Bryan Cranston one, where I believe he's a judge and his
Yep.
son's on trial.
Yes.
And I think it's gonna be really good because, we dabbled on all this tech and sci-fi and stuff, but this is going to be a drama where it's more, how to make a murder. Is that the show that?
Yeah, with Viola Davis. Yeah.
Yeah, kind of dabbles in lawyers and that side of the justice system, which I think is really cool.
Right.
And let's just be honest, like if you've watched Breaking Bad, Bryan Cranston just brings it.
Yeah.
He's not only an A-list actor, but I think he's a powerhouse really when it comes to a great TV show. So I think this is going to be really well received, and I'm expecting a lot from it, but I think we're going to get it in return.
Yeah. So I love the choice. Yeah. So like Shay said, Bryan Cranston is a judge. His son's on trial, and I've watched one episode so far, but Cranston he plays this character similar to a Walter White. We'll save it for next week when we first start talking about it. But I agree with, we're switching from tech and then we're heading to another side of the law and how that system is done, which I think we'll both have a lot of takes on. Just, I think we can incorporate it into even the legal system that's here in Canada, how long it takes to get a court date, how long some of these stupid cases take to get done. Mm-hmm. Dennis Olin. It's just, I think it's an interesting pivot, and I look forward to breaking it down with you.
Yeah, you won't see this crappy background, by the way, anymore. I'll be back to my regular spot. This was just a holiday thing, and we just ended it here. For those listening who, even though you heard us ramble on about next with our tinfoil hats on, if you want to watch it yourselves and you own a Bell Line account or Rogers account, you can go on the Global app and sign in through there, and you can watch all 10 episodes. And it also gives some features like some small clips from interviews with John Slattery and Fernando Andre. I know I'm butchering that name, but you know what I mean. Like if you want to look more into it, because it was a pretty phenomenal show. It was a good choice by you.
Oh, thank you. No, but I agree. Google, go into the Global app, watch the show, and then come back and listen to our takes and trash us if you want. Leave us some comments, and we'll get back to them. Even if we're not talking about next, we'll get back to them in the weeks ahead. But I agree with Shamus. Go back, watch the show because it's worth it, and it's really it was a good show, and
it's an eye opener. It's an eye opener to anybody who has no real clue about how dangerous it can be and what technology really, what technology devices it can affect and get a hold of, really.
Right. No, I couldn't agree more. So obviously New Year's later in the week. Any big plans for you, Shay?
No, I'm gonna keep it quiet. I got an air fryer, which is, I guess, a popular thing this Christmas, and I think we'll be just dabbling in that over New Year's Eve and have a couple drinks, and that's about it. What about yourself?
Probably, just do my normal thing, not communicate with human beings ever, like just, watch sports and no, probably watch Canada, Finland, and then I think United States plays Sweden that night too. So probably pretty tied up with that, but
knowing you 2020 is the perfect year because you're like, oh no, like COVID, I can't get out here, like I don't want to spread anything or get I don't want to.
Nobody cares about the health of others more than me.
Yeah, 100%.
I'm such a caring person. Like
you're gonna come out of this a hero instead of a villain because everyone's like, oh, Juggy, like the guy who he just stayed away and did his part What an angel.
I know I got to change that persona quick. If that's the expectation the rest of the time, I'm in some big trouble here.
Yeah. It's worth mentioning my girlfriend also said that instead of the show that we're going to pick, she wanted me to pick The Bachelor, the new Bachelor season coming up. And I thought that was going to be pretty controversial. I brought that up, but I also knew I couldn't put you through a reality TV show. So I did you
I
one.
can't do The Bachelor.
Yeah.
The Bachelor's with men, right?
Yeah. The Bachelor's one guy. No, The Bachelor's one guy and all chicks.
Oh, well, that's better, but I still couldn't do it.
Yeah, it would be just as painful in some tone.
Probably more
sure.
painful, but I won't get into that right now.
Yeah, for sure.
It's
For sure.
easy,
What about
just easier to avoid that.
for sure, for sure. So what's your
Well,
take? Oh, go
what's
ahead.
that?
Oh no, I was just gonna reiterate. So what's your take on the rest of the week and what do you got going on?
So yeah, the rest of the week, I guess tomorrow night I'll be podcasting about Team Canada's game this evening against Switzerland. Thursday I got a 2-pack of podcasts. I'll be podcasting with Matthew Wright about the college football playoff this Friday. College football semifinals, kind of our predictions, where we see Trevor Lawrence going, things of that nature.
Okay.
Also be podcasting with Adam Beers about week 17 in the NFL. That'll only be released Saturday, but it'll just be a preview into the weekend. And then I'll be podcasting Friday about Canada's New Year's Eve game against Finland. So
their biggest game of the preliminary round.
Point.
Yeah, and Adam Beers, I heard you talking some shit about the Browns. I'm nervous, but I know that Miami hopefully gets their ass whipped by the Bills, and that we're going to be safe, and we're going to get that nice little one.
You also got some good news today too, because Big Ben's not playing next week. Mason Rudolph is starting.
Oh, when I think of Mason Rudolph, I think about that head bash last year.
Yeah,
and that psychopath.
Yeah. So.
Well, that's good news. I like that. I like that a lot.
That bodes well for Cleveland to make the playoffs this weekend.
Oh, 100%.
So, great podcast tonight. Finale next Tuesday. We'll be starting our coverage of Your Honor. But until next week, everybody, from me and Shamus here to The Point, have a great New Year's. Stay safe, and we'll talk soon.
Yeah, guys, stay safe. Take care.